Welcome to the Rochester, New Hampshire History Podcast, a monthly show that will shine a light on a piece of history that has been all but forgotten.
In a previous episode, we discussed old local businesses that no longer existed. In this episode, we will look at more forgotten businesses of yesteryear that perhaps your grandfather or great-grandfather once frequented.
The Rochester Trust Company Bank on South Main Street was built in 1903, and these images are from the good old days of the 1950s. Ernest Dubois, a custodian of the bank, is shown here. The bank safe was so large, one could walk into it. This is the inside of Burnham's Drugstore. R. DeWitt Burnham, who is behind the counter on the right, leased the old Dominicus Hansen store in 1882. Here is an old bottle from the store, which still has its original cork.
On the left is the Ramaza Brothers store, which is also a pickup and drop-off spot for the trolley. We're going to take a peek inside the store and view their lunchroom. Notice the Easter greeting on the mirror in the back. Before the advent of big chain restaurants, every town had small restaurants. These two gentlemen are standing in front of such an establishment. This was Perrault's Lunchroom, located on 44 North Main Street.
45 North Main Street was the address of Prestons department store. Among the items they sold were glass, wallpaper, lamps, and crockery. The store was active in the early 1900s. Angelo and Julia Ali in front of their fruit store on South Main Street in 1922. This is the interior of the store. A half a century later, Angelo and Julia's sons were operating Collins Sporting Goods in the same building.
This is Silas Huzzy's stone shed, which was located on Sheridan Avenue and Granite Street. Huzzy was a master stone cutter who worked on many structures, including designing and building the North Main Street Stone Bridge. When Silas passed away in 1913, the headline in the newspaper was, "Built Main Street Bridge." Hansen Street was home to many businesses. One of these was a remnant store which was owned by Char Hansen. The store was active in the early 1900s, and among the items they sold were rugs, collars, white goods, and curtains.
This is a Sonoko Gas station on South Main Street. The invention of the gas pump at the turn of the 20th century permitted small businesses to sell gas. On the left is an oil change pit, and in the background, one could see the Franklin Street Cemetery. Where did we shop prior to large supermarkets? Many Rochester residents looked no further than several blocks from their home. They frequented neighborhood grocery stores, such as this one at 25 Pine Street, which was the Turmel's Grocery. Standing in the doorway is the proud owner, Wilfred Turmel.
In 1930, the Kico Bottling plant was located on Summer Street, near the railroad depot. And here are the trucks that delivered all the great tasting soda bottled there. Later, Kico Bottling would move on from its Summer Street location and reside on Lowell Street. It was known as one of the largest bottlers in the state. The WiDo Mills had a long history of producing textiles in Rochester, dating back to the 1800s. However, the workers did not always have a harmonious relationship with management. In the 1950s, a labor dispute had striking mill workers in the streets of Rochester.
In 1935, at the intersection of Pine Street and North Main Street, sat the First National Store. They were well stocked, carrying items such as butter, milk, eggs, and meat. J.F. Stafford Sun Jeweler, located at 15 South Main Street. They were a long-time Rochester business, being established in 1867.
The manufacturing of gas began at the gas house on the Gonick Road in 1906 at this brick building. The production of gas would continue for 34 years until it ceased in 1940. The Gonick Road would eventually become known as Route 125. Unlike most of the pictures, this is not an old picture. I'm sure I'm just one of the many who have had their hair cut at Hebert's Barbershop, which is located on South Main Street.
This ends the podcast. If you have any questions or comments, please email bobgriffinpodcast@gmail.com. and come back next month for another episode of Rochester, New Hampshire History.